Yeah. Well, I guess they had it coming.
We all have it coming, Clint.
Hey everybody, we're back with another episode for you all here. Well guys, 7 episodes in already.
And we got our first Western.
Our very first one. This goes to 1992 and it stars Clint Eastwood. This is the Unforgiven or just Unforgiven.
Just Unforgiven.
And this has got a pretty solid cast to it.
Great cast.
Clint Eastwood himself, Gene Hackman, Morgan Freeman, Richard Harris, Frances Fisher, which some people don't really know who she is, but you'll see her in movies like Titanic. She played Rose's mom.
Oh, did she really? I didn't know that.
Yeah,
Okay.
that's her. She plays Strawberry Alice in this one, so
Right.
she's another strong and assertive woman. Bit of an attitude, chip on her shoulder, but I think that's also just the way her character should have been because, you know, women in the West, just like women in the time, I forget the year Titanic took off, but it wasn't like women were as independent as they are now.
Right.
So,
Titanic took place before World War I broke out.
Yes.
Yeah.
I do remember that, but I
But,
don't remember the year specifically.
I'm a history buff. I should know that by now.
But today, yeah, we're going to be talking about a Western and what a Western it is. This is actually known as probably the last best Western in cinema history. It has gotten nothing but praise from critics and fans all over.
Won 4 Oscars.
Won 4 Oscars. Clint Eastwood actually got the trifecta here. I mean, he got Best Actor, Best Director.
Oh, he didn't get Best Actor.
He didn't get Best
He didn't get Best. He got Best Director and Best Picture.
Yeah. Okay.
And also got Best Cinematography. And then Gene Hackman won for Best Supporting Actor.
Yes, and rightfully so.
Yeah.
Because if you're watching this movie... Oh, go ahead, Joe.
He played a dick, too, man.
Really did.
You know, and this goes back to our Superman episode when people talk about how they felt like, you know, he wasn't dark and menacing as Lex Luthor. Just watch Gene Hackman in this movie.
Yeah, he makes up for it in this. It is total, like, role reversal. It is dark for him. And you don't realize it either.
You don't. It's almost like a different kind of darkness because he's not the kind of guy that goes around murdering dozens of people in this movie.
No.
All he has to do is just look at you and deliver you a line. And just with his presence, he's evil. Because he only beats up 2 people in this movie, and he does, spoiler alert, kills Morgan Freeman, but that's really it. He's not like the mass murdering genocidal maniac like in other villains. He's different than that, which is what makes him special, standing out above the others.
Makes the Western itself special because it's not the typical you're good, you're bad. I remember Clint Eastwood saying when he first read the script, he thought Gene Hackman's character, whose name is Little Bill Daggett.
Yep.
He said that he thought he was the good guy at first until he read it more and more. He discovered that he's actually the bad guy.
Mm-hmm.
And you can see that as it's playing out. Like, they're showing more and more for Little Bill, where, yeah, he looks like the good guy on the outside, but as you're going through the story, you start realizing there's more there to it than just what's on the face. Like, he's, like I said, a dick, but...
Cutting the Cowboys some slack in that beginning scene
Yeah.
where they should be getting a far more severe punishment.
Dude, the whipping? That's all he was going to do? I'm like, no, he should have done more than that.
But this is an interesting story. The story takes place in the Old West.
1880, I believe, is when it takes place.
Yes. And it actually starts kind of like a Star Wars movie where it scrolls up, tells you a little bit about this character that we're not even introduced to characters yet.
Right.
It's just this little hog farm with a beautiful sunset in the back. And you just
Cinematography is gorgeous in
it's
this movie.
It's amazing in this movie. It's so serious. It's not like older westerns where it's just day, like shot in the day, and you just see everything is just lit up. You know,
Exactly.
The colors pop. Clearly there's meaning behind the shots that they get.
You almost expect that for every Western to have gorgeous cinematography. A Western without good cinematography that's a sin.
Yes.
You're doing something wrong. And this one is immaculate. In fact, they didn't actually allow any automobiles of any kind to go anywhere near the set, so it could eliminate the smog and maybe the fumes from any kind of automobile within the presence, because they wanted to capture that old feel of being in the 1800s.
They wanted the authenticity of it being out in the West. They didn't want any extra noises either.
Exactly. They wanted complete isolation. This is a town in the middle of Wyoming, which is just a big open state of nothing but mountains and forests and livestock.
That's hard to find now, secluded areas to turn into, quiet and have it look as authentic as possible.
We've all become urbanized.
Oh, yeah. And everything just keeps building more and more, so it's good that they made this movie when they did.
Yeah,
and
agreed.
One quick thing is Clint Eastwood had actually said that he actually had this script for about 9 or 10 years or something.
It was that long. It was something that long. It was on the blacklist for so long.
Well, originally, it was written by David Webb Peoples.
Yes.
And he actually had sold the script to Francis Ford Coppola, who was really interested in making it. But I guess nothing happened to it. It got shopped around. Clint Eastwood bought it. And he said he felt like he was too young for the part.
Okay.
So he kept the script.
Wait, hold on. Too young in the 80s?
Too young in the 80s.
Dude, he was still pretty old.
These are his words, not mine.
In this movie, he has to be at least late 50s, early 60s in this movie in 92. I mean, when he was doing spaghetti westerns out in Italy with Sergio Leone, I mean, he was already a middle-aged man out there.
Well, yeah, he was also in the second Creature from the Black Lagoon movie.
Was he seriously in that movie?
He played a scientist.
Oh my God.
He's like in it for a hot second. I think he speaks very little, like maybe one line, maybe two at the most.
Finds a mouse in his pocket.
He only pulls his mouse out. He's like, all I remember is he's holding it.
It's like Jack Nicholson in the original Little Shop of Horrors. Jesus.
And he was probably like early 20s, in his 20s doing that movie. So yeah, that makes sense.
So we get the credits, well, not credits, little story about what's going on in this hog farm. And we don't even know it's a hog farm yet. And it doesn't even say him really at first. It says something about his wife who died.
Yes.
That she was this really good person and she couldn't find a man. And she hooks up with this guy named William Money.
Interesting name.
Who was like a terrible person.
He has a huge backstory of murder and death.
And they would bring up multiple times that he killed women and children, which is not a big thing back in the West.
No.
Yeah.
It's the West for a reason. There's no law out there. There's no government.
And that's kind of the theme of the movie, is that the violence, you want to suppress the violence, but yet it's kind of like you are who you are.
Right.
After we get introduced to the story about William Money and his character, we go right into this saloon where these...
Cat house, essentially.
Yeah.
Cat house, prostitution.
A woman is getting her face cut and abused by a guy. Mm-hmm. And the women come in to try to save her. So they bring the sheriff in, who is played by Gene Hackman. And instead of giving them a severe punishment, he first offers a whipping. And Francis Fisher's character says, all you're going to do is give him a whipping. So then he fines him instead. Says, you owe me...
The owner of the cat house has a contract for the prostitutes that if anything happens to them, they have to pay for him. So he spent how much money on her? So they figure out, what is it, like 5 or 6 horses they have to give him?
5 or 6 horses. Yeah. That was payment.
Yeah, I'm like, over a human life, just, I want 5 horses.
Oh, Jesus.
And Francis Fisher's character is like up in arms because it's like, what are they gonna do? And this girl is permanently scarred now.
What are we gonna do with horses? We can't do it. We can sell them, but what's that gonna do for us, really?
And what's it gonna do for this other girl's morale? Who, by the way, the girl who got her face cut, do you guys remember Darla from The Crow? with Brandon
Is
Lee.
that her?
That's her.
I can see
the
that.
whole movie. I'm sitting there going, I've seen her before, and I didn't even think about looking it up because I'm like, it was bothering me. Now that I know,
Now I can see it. How about that?
The voice is what gave it away.
Yeah, agreed.
And when I looked it up, I said, okay, I remembered her from somewhere. But yeah, Darla is Sarah's mom in The Crow.
Okay.
And that's who this prostitute is that gets her face cut.
And the reason why she got her face cut up is because she was laughing at the cowboy's dick of how small it was. And it was almost an impulse laughter because she wasn't expecting it to be that little. And yet he goes berserk and takes a knife and slashes her face several times.
It's a pretty big dude, too. So you're...
Yeah. She was doing... Yes, she shouldn't have laughed, but at the same time, the guy should not have been doing what he was doing. It was really fucked up.
He overreacted.
And he did overreact. And it set the chain of events for how the whole plot is going to play out.
Yes. This is what starts everything. Because a young kid named the Schofield Kid approaches Clint Eastwood, William Money, and we find out he actually has 2 kids. He's on this hog farm, and he's doing a terrible job at being a farmer. He's actually relying on his kids more.
Yeah.
He can't rally the hogs, and I believe they're getting sick, and the kids are saying that, oh yeah, another one's getting sick. And the Schofield Kid says, there's a bounty on these 2 guys that these prostitutes are fed up with how there's no law and order, and they feel like they've been unjust for a friend of theirs.
Yep.
And he said, I heard you were probably one of the meanest, most nastiest guys, but you don't look it to me.
He doesn't. I mean, the guy, he acts older than he actually is. He can't shoot a gun straight. He can't see well. He can't even get on his own horse.
No, the horse
Keeps falling.
And the horse keeps running away from him. He has no control over it.
I think it was also that he hasn't shot a gun in, what do you say, like 9 years?
Something like that.
It was. I'm guessing as old as his oldest kid would have been, he hasn't shot a gun.
There's a funny scene where he's just shooting at this gas can with his 6-shooter. He misses all 6 times. He just goes inside and gets fed up and gets a shotgun and blows it away in one shot.
Guess you can't miss with a fucking shotgun.
He really does rely on his kids way too much.
Yes.
And they're 10, maybe 10 years old.
And I think he realizes that he's doing a terrible job, and he hears that it's what, $1,000 for the bounty,
It's a high amount, and they decide to split it in half.
which isn't historically accurate because really $100 back then was like $1 million.
It's true.
So that was one thing I caught on instantly that made me go, I don't think that's right, but it sounds good for the movie.
I mean, hell, to buy your way out of the Civil War for duty, it was like
Yeah.
$300
Yeah.
to buy your way out of service. $1,000 just to kill 2 cowboys.
Yeah.
Yeah.
From prostitutes yet?
Prostitutes.
Phew.
And also, one thing that was brought up by the Schofield Kid is that he's telling the story about how the prostitute was cut up. And it's very over-exaggerated. It's not what happened. He goes into details about how the girl's eyes were cut out, how her tits were cut off.
Her ears, I think.
Yeah, like completely disfigured this woman. And that's not even close to what happened. Yes, it's several cuts on her face, but he didn't cut her eyes out or her tits off. And this kind of goes into a reoccurring thing with this movie is falsehood of storytelling. It's not just with the prostitution, it's also with another character who's English Bob and the writer that he is accompanied with, about how we fabricate so much in the storytelling just to get a story out or just to get a rise out of other characters. That's a reoccurring theme that goes on throughout this movie. We'll get into more as we get further down the plot, but that's something I noticed is storytelling and how it's easy to manipulate dialogue and how it's easy to manipulate facts or fiction. I thought it was really cool, though, how it really focused on that for a good majority of the movie. Not just that one scene, but throughout the whole movie.
Mm-hmm. Oh, the movie tells a consistent story. I mean, I don't think there's really like a waste of time that we see in it. I'm not a huge Western fan, so I just kind of went in right away going, all right, let's see what we got here.
Yeah.
But like we said earlier, it does separate from a lot of other Westerns, and I think this is also one of those stories that you could put into today, make it like a modern day, oh, this guy worked for the mob or something.
Right.
And it could still work.
To me, this is your most unconventional Western that has ever been made. There is no 5-on-5 gunfight in a big town. That doesn't happen in this movie. There is no scene where one guy walks to the opposite side of the town, the other guy's coming from the other side of the town. It's dawn, and on the count of 3, we draw our pistols, and whoever kills the other wins. Mm-hmm. There's no cliche like that in this movie.
I was
it's
expecting
so
at least
unconventional.
Just once.
Just once? You were hoping for something like
well,
that?
No, I was
to happen?
expecting it. Like, there was a scene with, what's his name, Bob?
English Bob?
Yeah. And Little Bill, or Big Bill, what the fuck his name is? Gene Hackman.
Little Bill Jacket. Yeah.
And like they're talking, and all of a sudden, like the writer's trying to give Bob the gun, and Gene Hackman already is unhooking it, like he's ready to fucking just draw.
Yeah.
I was expecting it to happen right there, and I'm like, then he's like, "Nah, I'm good." I'm like, it pissed me off.
I'd say it was a tense scene though. It really did ratchet up the tension,
and it totally broke the cliche of the Western, which was nice. That was really refreshing to see that, because it's like you said, you're expecting it, and then it's like, no, I'm good. Like, oh, wow.
Fucking teased us. I was just like,
just expecting someone to die.
I just wanted to see somebody get shot like that.
That happens later. It does happen later.
Clint Eastwood's character, he decides that because he needs the money to make sure his kids are going to be okay,
right,
and the farm life isn't working out for him, and he doesn't have his wife to keep him in line anymore, he decides to take up the job, reluctantly. And on his way to go meet up with the Schofield kid again, he bumps into Morgan Freeman, and who happens to be his old partner back in the day.
His name is Ned Logan in this movie.
And he's kind of surprised to hear this from him, because he said, "What, are you drinking again?" And he said, "No, my wife had me put down the bottle. She made me see through my old ways. I really don't want to do it, but I could use the money." And Morgan Freeman says, "Well, I'll go with you. It would be like the old days." I don't remember the details if Morgan Freeman was reluctant with it at first, but I know he was just kind of like taken back when...
Right.
He was a little bit, but he was actually, seemed like he was more pushing for it, where Morgan Freeman's wife, I guess it was his wife, was giving him a lot of dirty looks through the whole situation.
Yeah,
like,
she didn't want him to go.
Yeah, like him holding the gun, and like you could see that it was a very tense moment between him and, I'm guessing, his wife, but...
Yeah.
It's just so cool that this screenplay, you don't need to have dialogue to have the emotion emit off of the faces of the actors. Like, she didn't say a line, but you could tell exactly what she was thinking in her head.
She was throwing fucking daggers from her eyes. There was just a lot of...
The way she looked at the rifle on Clint Eastwood's horse's saddle, she looked at it for a second and then just kept walking, but you saw the stink eye.
And that's a typical Clint Eastwood movie, they say. When he hires his actors, they said that he doesn't actually meet actors in an audition. He has them videotaped, and the actor who played the writer, let me find his name real quick. I believe it's Saul Rubinek. He played
Beauchamp.
Mr. Beauchamp.
Mr. Beauchamp, that's it.
He had talked about how him and Jack Nicholson knew each other, and Jack was telling him about how to prepare for the movie because he knows Clint Eastwood, and he said, just go above and beyond in your audition video. So he went above and beyond in his audition video and got the job, and he said to Clint, like, how comes you don't actually see actors until the day of the set? And Clint's response was, because I couldn't turn him down. Because he's an actor, he knows what it's like. And his philosophy is a movie is 95% actors. And from what I also understand is he'll only do 2 takes, but they said it's only 2 good takes. If he feels like it's not a good take, you'll do more than 2. But for the most part, they said Clint Eastwood is 2, and if they're good, move on. Yeah.
At least it's not Ed Wooding it. Like, oh, let's get just fucking rolling, man.
Right. You sure want a second take? No, it's perfect. What? Yeah, that's the one thing I hear about Clint Eastwood's mentality when directing movies. They're very laid back. His productions are very relaxed. Sometimes I actually heard that he doesn't even like to say the word action. He'll just be like, oh, you go ahead. You go ahead. Whenever you're ready. That's how chill he is with all of his productions, which is cool. That's great, because a lot of studios and productions, they can be tense and they can be really troubling.
And being an actor and knowing what it takes and working with the best and knowing the best, especially in his era, I'm sure he knows the faith that it takes to put into an actor and put into a performance, and that's why it's go time. You know when to turn it on and when to turn it off.
Mm-hmm.
Here's what you do, now do it. And Saul Rubinek was telling a story about, towards the end, Clint actually did 2 shots of a scene with himself, and Saul actually went up to him and said, I think you could do one more good one. And Clint was like, you really think so? And he said, yeah, I think you got one more good one in you. So he did one more, and he said, if I do this 3rd take and it goes in the movie, I'm not giving you credit for it.
Go ahead. Make my day.
And apparently, the 3rd take is what actually got into the movie then.
That's great.
So,
wow.
Saul was like, so I technically directed Clint Eastwood.
In a weird sense.
Yeah. So, picking up where we left off, Morgan Freeman does decide to go with Clint Eastwood, and they're searching for the Schofield kid, and he's miles ahead of them, and he winds up shooting at him. He doesn't realize who they are, because the Schofield kid also said, I don't want you telling anybody about this, so that we split the reward 3 different ways, or more than 3, or if anybody else hears about it.
Right.
They get a hold of him, tell him to stop shooting. He questions why Morgan Freeman's with.
Mm-hmm.
He explains that he's his partner. He's not doing this without him.
Right. He's a good shot.
He's a very good shot, apparently.
Yeah.
And Morgan Freeman is actually the one who questions the Schofield kid and how he missed him like so many times.
Shooting all directions.
Yeah. And at one point they're riding, and he says about how good of a shot he is, and then he says to the kid, you see that hawk up there? I could hit that, easily.
Right between the eyes.
Right between the eyes. Can you hit that? And the Schofield kid looks up and he's like, yeah, I could hit that, no problem. And Morgan Freeman says, there is no hawk up there, kid.
Questioning his eyesight. And then he gets pissed. He takes the canteen off of Morgan Freeman's horse and throws it on the ground and starts shooting it a couple times.
And he can't shoot it.
Missed it every single shot.
Yeah. So how far can you see, kid? 50 feet? Less? And then Clint Eastwood's response is, well, maybe that's all you need.
I think it was 50 yards.
50 yards. You just need to see 50 yards. And if you can do that, then chances are you might hit somebody.
And they're good.
Yeah.
So they accept it. They move on.
Still a tense moment, though.
And then we cut away to, I guess there are a few other people who have heard about the bounty.
Mm-hmm.
The
English Bob.
English Bob. And English Bob is known for telling these tall tales. And he rides into town. And he's got Saul Rubinek, who plays Mr. Beauchamp in the movie. And
Writing the story.
And he's this writer for him. Mm-hmm. And Gene Hackman's character, Little Bob.
Little Bill.
Little Bill.
Now I get you done fucked up.
Yeah.
Bills and Bobs.
Bills and Bobs.
Too many fucking bees, all right?
He's aware of English Bob. That's it. Yeah. English Bob, Little Bill.
Yeah.
Okay.
It's confusing.
And he basically calls English Bob out on all this BS about these old stories. He doesn't accept violence in the town at all. So
no guns in the town.
No guns.
During a certain time frame. At all, actually.
Well, he says to leave your firearms even before you enter the town.
Right.
So, and that's the way he maintains peace, which isn't
That's
a
not
bad thing.
unreasonable at all, yeah.
No, he's the sheriff. He's got to maintain law and order in the town.
Right.
And that's where I can see Clint Eastwood saying he thought Little Bill was a good guy because that's his job. That's
He's
the job of the
maintaining
sheriff.
some degree of law. It's not total chaos in this town. Otherwise, everyone would be dead by now.
And in a lot of ways, especially during that time, you had to inflict violence and show who's the top dog.
Mm-hmm.
So, yeah, in the movie it's kind of portrayed poorly and viciously, but how else are you going to take care of other violent people? You got to get somebody to show their top dog to be the top dog.
Exactly.
So he pretty much puts English Bob in his place,
The Duck.
The Duck.
The Duck.
It's supposed to be the Duke, but they call him the Duck.
Yeah. And it's a way of intimidation, I think. I think he knows that it's supposed to be Duke, but he just calls him Duck because of how much of a fake English Bob is.
Yeah. And he's telling these stories that are, this isn't what really happened to this guy. I was there.
Instantly, Mr. Beauchamp goes, wait, you were there? You have an eyewitness? Well, Mr. Beauchamp, were you actually there? Oh yeah, I was in the background, and I just kind of embellished some of the dialogue just to, sell it to the readers. Well, I was actually there, and this is what happened. Oh, you were there? He becomes instantly drawn into Gene Hackman. Mm-hmm. And this is after Gene Hackman beats the hell out of English Bob with his fists, just to prove a point about no guns in my town, you're a fake, I don't trust you, I think you're up to no good. And of course, the prostitutes in the cat house, they see this going on, and they're thinking, well, there goes our shot of trying to get revenge against these cowboys.
Yep. They think it's all done, nobody's showing up.
Right.
And Mr. Beauchamp actually becomes a protege, I guess. Or he becomes Gene Hackman's writer.
Exactly. He decides to stay on his own accord because as English Bob is going back into his carriage, he gets his guns back eventually, and Gene Hackman's yelling, oh, just so you know, your writer didn't quit on you. He stayed here on his own accord.
He actually bent the barrels of the guns like a J shape. It's ridiculous.
Oh, man. Good stuff. But yeah, right before that moment happens, there's that intense scene where the two men are in jail, and Gene Hackman is talking to them.
And he lets Beauchamp out of the jail cell.
To start writing.
Yes.
And then he's actually explaining what happened in the story that he was reading, that he's like, oh, I was there, and then explaining everything. Honestly, I don't remember how the whole gun scene happened. All I remember was him talking about it, and then pulls out the gun, and then I can't remember what the hell that was.
Well, English Bob, in the story, he's sober, and he's trying to defend a woman's honor. But what really happened is that English Bob was drunk, and the guy he's out to kill, he's a big guy, and English Bob, I think, shoots and misses, and then this pisses off the guy he's trying to kill, and then he slowly raises his gun, and he misses too. So it's a lot of missing back and forth, but then the big guy that English Bob's trying to kill, he blows his own foot off.
That's right.
He falls to the ground, and the only way English Bob killed him is because he shot the gun at close range, right in front of his face, as he was stinking drunk. This writer has everything completely botched and fabricated to a extreme level, and then of course this is now making for an interesting story because Gene Hackman is relishing every moment, and he's telling it everything how it's actually gone down. And of course English Bob can't take it because yeah, he's right, god damn it, he's all bloodied, bashed and everything. And then he has the idea to give his gun to Beauchamp, saying, if you kill me or if you shoot me, you two can walk out of here. You're the keys.
That's right.
You're the keys. And then he's not a shooter. This guy's he's not good with a gun at all. I probably never even held a gun before this day. Maybe.
He pisses his pants when
Pisses
he's...
his pants. The urine trickled down his pants. Oh my god. There's a lot of underlying comedy in this movie. You don't really see it at first, but upon maybe a second viewing, you probably would see it like, oh, he pissed his pants. Oh, poor middle-aged man. And then he actually, the way he holds the gun towards Gene Hackman, saying, okay, I still could shoot you, but I'm going to pass it off to English Bob in the jail cell. And Gene Hackman loves this. Like, oh, give him the gun. Tell him to shoot me. Go ahead. See if he has the balls to do it. And, of course, he doesn't, because we're waiting for this moment. Like, is someone going to die? Is someone going to get shot in this moment?
The one moment I wanted of a duel, and fucking didn't happen. It did not happen. I'm kind of still upset about this.
That was a good decision, because I would have killed you. And then he sends him packing, and then he's cursing at the cat house. You damn whores, you wouldn't cut it in England if you came to my country.
Yeah. Like, all mediocre and shit like that.
Oh my god.
So after that, we go back to the three main guys, the Schofield kid, Morgan Freeman's character, and Clint Eastwood. And we get some scenes where they're camping out, and
Sorry, I love the fact that like you're calling it the Schofield Kid. You're not even calling him by the actor's name.
I don't
You're
even
calling
know.
Morgan
And
Freeman
His name is
Clint Eastwood.
Jamiz
Never mind,
Wolvet.
we'll go back to the
Yeah,
Schofield
that's
Kid.
let's go back to Schofield Kid. That's easier to pronounce. I'm sorry if I butchered his name completely, but
Not
Schofield
only that,
Kid's
but-
easier to say.
not only
It's
that,
fucking Clint Eastwood and Morgan Freeman. You can't really call him anything else.
Yeah.
if I said the actor who plays the Schofield Kid, do you know who he is?
Fuck no.
Do you know who he is?
No.
I just thought it was funny because, like, literally, as you're telling it, you're going the Schofield Kid and then Morgan Freeman and Clint Eastwood, like, they're
They're two titans. They've worked together on many projects, not just Unforgiven, but Invictus and $1 Million Baby. They have a big history together.
The funny thing is, I never made that correlation before. Like, I've seen $1 Million Baby. It was like amazing movie. Never thought that they actually worked before.
Yeah.
It's also easier in a Western because there's the Wild Bills, English Bobs. It's just easier to call these guys by their real names to have a clear picture of who they are.
And obviously, I already fucked it up on who was who. Too many fucking B's, right?
Other bees.
No disrespect to the actors or their characters,
Oh, no.
but it's just
Yes.
I mean, it's almost like Star Wars characters, you know, or Star Trek. You know, you're saying like, or Game of Thrones, perfect example.
Mhm.
There's all these like out there names that it's just better to go Jason Momoa. You
Jason
know what I'm
Momoa,
talking about. You know
Jamie
what I'm talking
Lannister, and Nikolai Coster-Waldau. I can pronounce your name, but yeah, there's a lot of actors that are not from America, except Peter Dinklage. This guy from Jersey has a terrible Jersey accent.
Morgan Freeman and Clint Eastwood are out camping the one night, and they're talking about his past and how Morgan Freeman's questioning whether or not he can have the audacity to go back to his old ways. And you can tell Eastwood doesn't want to. He likes being a new, reformed person. He loved being with his wife, but
His kids are his world now.
his kids are his world. And on top of that, he doesn't want to disrespect what his wife had done. You know, he doesn't go out looking for other women, he said. He won't
Right.
even touch the prostitutes for sexual endeavors. He's still
Exactly.
faithful to his wife even though she's gone.
Mm-hmm.
You know, he likes what he did. He likes changing. He is looking for that forgiveness, but yet it's almost like it's an addiction, you know, really. It's almost like what a drug addict says about, you know, it's in me and I just can't quite kick it. I mean, because he was an alcoholic
He was, and he was a killer.
and he was a killer.
Is it
So-
in our nature to truly change?
He has so many great quotes in the movie about
really does.
killing a man, about like changing, and they're
And it's like, even when they do start killing, he's really reluctant on doing it. Like, it's not like, I'm gonna do this. No, he like literally was trying not to, but he had to do the job because he wanted to make sure his kids were.
he tries to let the Schofield Kid do the killing and Morgan Freeman, and at one point
Right.
Morgan Freeman got his eyes on the barrel and he says, I can't do it.
Because they come upon a couple of the cowboys, and one of the cowboys is one of the guys that was at the scene when the prostitute's face got cut up, and he sort of tried to prevent it, but he was still caught in part of the act in some way. He shoots the horse. Morgan Freeman shoots the horse, and the kid's leg is broken, so he's already struggling for his life right now. And yeah, he has that moment where he's like, I can't do it. I can't shoot this guy.
Mm-hmm.
It's not in me anymore. And the Schofield Kid, he claims to have killed 5 people.
Yeah, he tries to
He's
sound like this ruthless, cold-blooded
Very
killer.
macho about it. Like, oh yeah, I killed 4 guys and I killed this one Spaniard, you know, who was trying to come at me with a knife, and I took care of him.
Mm-hmm.
Not the case.
No, as we find out later
Bunch
on.
of talk. Yeah.
Because at one point they reach that one guy that was part of the saloon. Clint Eastwood takes Morgan Freeman's rifle. It looks like he doesn't shoot the guy, and the kid calls him out on it, and Eastwood says, I got him.
Got him in the stomach.
And as the kid, or the guy who says that, you know, he thought he could escape, he
Mhm.
says, no, guys, I'm shot. And
Yeah.
then
And that's one of the most painful places to get shot to, is the gut. And it
Oh,
takes a
yeah.
long time to die from something like that. He could have put him out of his misery by just putting a bullet in his head or his heart, but he shot him in the gut. So it's going to be a long, excruciatingly painful death.
Mm-hmm.
He's screaming for water, and then they're going back and forth. And actually, that moment, I'm just thinking, oh, Jesus Christ, just end it already,
And
please.
the fact
This
that
kid's
the-
suffering.
And the fact that Clint Eastwood was like, "We're not gonna shoot you. Just go give him some fucking water."
Just help
I,
him.
I was like, "Oh, he's gonna shoot this guy who's walking past." No, he literally lets him go get water. He's like, "The kid's die." He knows the guy's gonna die, so they were done.
Yeah.
This is what makes it a very unconventional Western, because
Yeah.
normally the guy
They're
would have been
showing
shot in the
sympathy.
head. There's sympathy between both sides in the shootout.
And it's crazy because like most westerns are ultra violent, and this movie is more about the story rather than the violence. Like this is what caught me off guard as I'm watching it, was the fact that he did this. He was showing sympathy and remorse. The fact that, yeah, we just shot your friend, but he's gonna die anyway. Just go take care of him.
And
Yeah.
that's part of the reason why Clint Eastwood and Gene Hackman wanted to do it. Gene Hackman initially turned the movie down
He
because
did.
he said that there was too much violence in it, or he was done with violence in general in
Yeah.
movies. He just
Mhm.
needed a break from it from years of doing it before. And Clint Eastwood was the one who said, I understand everything you're saying, but just go back, and if we can try to make a point that the violence isn't what should happen and be an end-all result, because most of the time in typical westerns, that's how you solve issues. Or even in 1992, people were like, "Oh, you still got to kick their ass."
Mm-hmm.
They're like, "Let's show that it's not,"
Yeah.
and that's what won Hackman over to do it.
Did you guys take notice that what the hell is his name? The kid that actually was there and gave his friend the water. I was trying to figure out where I've seen him before.
Lachlan Monroe.
Yeah, dude, he was in
Yeah.
Scary Movie. He fucking is recently.
versus Jason.
Yeah, he's recently in fucking
You know-
Riverdale as Elizabeth Cooper's dad. I'm like,
He had to have looked familiar to me too.
I'm sitting there
I
just like the
definitely
whole
saw
time,
him
like,
before
really?
sometime too. Yeah, everybody in this movie. There's that familiar face.
Yeah.
Darla from The Crow. I never would have pieced that together unless you had said that.
I've seen The Crow so many damn times that
That should be another discussion. one
it
day.
it will be.
That should be
We
another
cannot
discussion.
not talk about The Crow.
So they're going back to Campy again, and they go to the location for the next cowboy.
It's at the salon.
At the there's-
Saloon, salon.
Saloon, yeah.
Take your pick.
And they're playing cards, and they're just kind of scope the two guys, because Morgan Freeman has now retired. He's done. He doesn't want to be a part of this anymore. And Clint Eastwood stays noble and true to his word that he will still give him a cut for coming out this far to do the job, just to be there. So Morgan Freeman takes off, and it's just the Schofield kid.
Hold on, you're getting ahead of yourself here.
Okay, sorry.
Yeah, when they go to the salon, Clint Eastwood's getting sick.
Right.
And
it's pouring. Like it's been raining
It's
for days.
downpouring.
It is raining heavy. The kid goes up and has a piece of the prostitutes, and Morgan Freeman actually says, "Do you mind if I go up and don't tell my wife?" And Clint Eastwood's just like, "Yeah, whatever."
Mm-hmm.
And I believe Gene Hackman actually somehow gets notified of Clint Eastwood in there, and he doesn't know that he's William Money either.
He doesn't know.
And Eastwood does tell him a little bit about himself, but he doesn't say everything. And
They're making up names to
Yeah.
keep their identities in the dark.
I can't remember, 'cause honestly, I only saw this movie once, and that was for the show, so I don't remember.
Same here.
Yeah.
I don't remember how. And it's funny because this movie's this like all-time classic, but yet I just watched it now.
I need to see it a second time.
Me too.
I do need to see it.
It's worth a second
It
time.
is worth it.
Honestly, that's why I was going to ask why you chose this at the end of the episode. But why did you choose this movie?
I didn't. John was the one who suggested
Why did
it.
you choose this? If we're all seeing this for the first time,
Because like we just said, we're talking about this great Western. Maybe we should talk about the mother of
Yeah.
all Westerns.
I was curious as I'm watching this. I'm like, that was the one thing. I'm like, why? I thought you chose a call, not you, John. But it was like, now that I
Yeah.
know, man, I'm like, like I said, it's a really good movie. It's just
Oh,
like,
yeah, we could've
I
talked
thought somebody
about-
already watched it already. We're like, cool, it's a fucking good movie. I'm like, now I'm like, wow, we're all seeing it for the first time, and like, this makes more sense. Like, it seems like, wow, none of us actually had
Yeah.
really an opinion before watching it. So it's like we're all seeing it as one.
I mean, we could have talked about Tombstone. We could have talked about the good, the bad, and the ugly, or
Hang 'em high.
Hang 'em High.
fistful of dollars.
Yeah.
Now I'm rambling off.
Outlaw Josie Wells.
Seriously.
But there's also a good backstory to this movie. I mean, between Francis Ford Coppola getting the script from it being passed down. I mean, excuse me. There's
choked up.
I burped, you asshole.
It's right here.
You know, coming from the guy who broke my trophy, shut the fuck up.
Live that down.
Dude, you're never. All I heard was the crash. You go, you broke my fucking trophy.
We're gonna be 80-year-old men one day. You're gonna get me on a call and be like, "You broke my damn trophy."
It's gonna be my last dying words. John broke my trophy.
What do you say? John broke my trophy.
What?
Fuck him.
What? Oh yeah. My laugh is a cough. Okay, we're getting off topic again.
I hate you guys. I don't know why we're best friends.
You know why? Bullshit.
Exactly.
Liar, you know why we're friends.
Why? Because we're all circle jerking doing this show or something?
We could be.
No, we're not. All right.
Don't lie, John. You enjoy this. Make eye contact next time.
Don't forget the lube. Anyway.
Wow, we got way off.
We got way off
It got
topic.
fucking dark.
How did we go from Clint Eastwood to circle jerking? I apologize to anyone listening out there who might be offended. Please don't.
Do you know Clint Eastwood wanted to be a jazz musician?
He wanted to be a carpenter. He was a carpenter originally. I actually like how there's a carpenter reference. Gene Hackman is a carpenter in this movie, but he's a terrible carpenter.
Yeah.
It's even a running joke throughout this movie how some of the cowboys are saying, there's probably not a damn straight angle on that entire house, and it's proven because he's got 10 leaks during this rainstorm. His house is getting flooded, and Beauchamp is writing the story, and he can't because all the paper's getting wet, and he said, maybe you should hang the carpenter. What? What'd you say to me? Oh, you were the carpenter. Never mind.
I also found this out, speaking of like little behind-the-scenes tidbits and homages, I guess. If you look at the tombstones, they're actually names of people that Clint Eastwood had worked with. Like
Okay.
Like S. Leone was actually
Sergio Leone.
was on one of the tombstones.
Mhm.
It's one of those, if you blink, if you'll miss it. But,
It's a nice Easter egg.
yeah. But no, going back to what you said, Jeff, about us seeing it for the first time, it really does make this conversation genuine.
Yeah.
Because finding out the research after seeing it, it makes you want to see the movie more. Like, I find the behind-the-scenes stuff more fascinating, and it actually makes the movie better.
I agree.
Yeah.
Personally, like, I saw it and said, okay, that's really good. It's kind of like when I first saw the movie Trainspotting. I don't know if you guys ever saw that.
I've seen that.
With Ewan McGregor.
Tough to watch at first.
It's a Danny Boyle movie.
Mm-hmm.
That's another movie that you watch and you go, okay, it's good, but then the more research you do and you see how like a camera angle is and why lighting is a certain color, like everything plays an effect in that movie.
It's freaky.
It is freaky.
It's a terrifying movie. Doesn't pull any punches on drug use.
But this movie is like that, where you watch it, you enjoy it, you go back and you do research and you look upon it and you go, wow, this movie's a lot better than what I get from it the first time I see it.
Mm-hmm.
So,
Which is why we should see it a second time at some point.
Why we highly recommend you should, because we can go on and tell you the story and how it's different from a Western, a typical Western. But if you don't know some of this back stuff and why it's more special, you won't understand how special it really is.
Agreed. So just what we saw with English Bob getting beat up by Gene Hackman is now beating up Clint Eastwood.
A sick Clint Eastwood.
A sick Clint Eastwood. He's got the fever right now, and then Schofield Kid and Morgan Freeman, I guess they were talking to the prostitutes upstairs, and then they were making a quick exit as they were getting out. Mm-hmm. And then this sets up the days to come. Clint Eastwood is not feeling well. He's overcome with fever, and he gets his first look at the prostitute who had her face cut up, and he actually said that he thought she was an angel. And it was a really nice, tender moment between the two of them, because she offers him a freebie, and she said, well, not necessarily with me. I mean, you could have it with any other women who look better than I did. And he said, listen, your scars don't matter to me because I got scars of my own. We all have scars, indicating that we all have troubled pasts. We all have things that we regret doing. But it doesn't take away the fact that I meant what I said to you. Really nice moment as he's trying to get over the sickness. There's snow on the ground, so I would say a decent amount of time has passed. Unless it was in the middle of winter and then we just got a snowstorm.
Yeah, they didn't say.
I'm guessing it was supposed to show time, because like when they ride the town, it's raining, and then I
Right.
guess to get over the sickness and the healing from after getting his ass kicked,
Right.
it took its time. So I'm guessing it's got to be at least a couple months before he's fully healed, so that would show the snow.
And I guess it would kind of play into the fact that maybe Gene Hackman and his boys would forget all about it. Maybe he would forget the sick man. Maybe he just kind of died of his wounds,
brushed
or
over,
he was taken over by sickness, because being sick back then, there was a more than 80% chance if you got sick with anything in the West,
dead.
you're dead. There's no upgrade in medicine.
It
There's
said-
to a degree, but it's not sophisticated.
It said smallpox is what killed Clint Eastwood's wife in the movie.
Yeah.
And it's true. Even Morgan Freeman says to the prostitutes, because they're actually taking care of Clint Eastwood while they're hiding away in a barn, I believe.
Yeah.
They say, if you have any medicine, bring it.
Right.
So,
Right.
but I don't know if they actually did bring any medicine.
No, I think he
I know
just-
they stitched his face, and I believe it was the
Mhm.
Darla's mom. Darla.
It was Darla. It was actually, we're going to call her Darla.
Sarah's mom, Darla. Yeah,
Yeah. Oh.
I believe she was the one who actually.
I think that's what also caused the tender moment between the two, because like that's when he actually got to see her face, and then like showing that he is a good guy at heart. He's not some fucking monster.
He even says
Right.
he's still loyal to his wife,
Yeah.
even in death. But he doesn't say that she's dead. He
Right.
actually, the way he says it, it's just, no, my wife's just the way. She's watching over my kids.
Yeah.
That's what he said.
Yeah.
She's watching over my kids.
Also, going back to the kids, he said he was going to be gone for several weeks, and those kids are 10 years old. Can you imagine
2 weeks, I think.
2 weeks for 10-year-old kids
Yeah.
on their own?
Different time, all right.
I was
I
gonna
know,
say
very different time. I know babysitters weren't really around back then, or proper childcare was around back then. I'm just thinking, are those kids going to be okay?
it did pop into my head, but
Actually, towards the end of the movie, when after everything's done, he talks about his kids. I'm like, holy shit, who's been watching his kids this whole time?
Are they going to die?
I'm like, are they even alive?
Oh man, but yeah, then Darla was talking to the prostitute saying like, oh, it's so nice of him how he still remains faithful to his wife, and the one was like talking about, wife. If he did have a wife, she's long dead. Going back to the characters, and that was the moment where they brought the body of the one cowboy into the town. And then, of course, people were throwing rocks through the cat house window saying, you killed him. Like, well, he had it coming. He had it coming. And that's a iconic line in this movie. He had it coming, because it was actually referred to the Schofield kid. He says it in a great moment with him and Clint Eastwood. And this is, I'm getting ahead of myself, but they scope out the one house where they actually find the other remaining cowboy. And then the Schofield kid breaks down the shitter. He's not there. But then he goes to the other one, and then the guy's pleading for his life. No, don't do it. I have no gun. And the kid shoots him 3 times in the chest.
but he's hesitant of
He's
shooting.
very hesitant, indicating, he never killed anybody before this day.
Or is he feeling sympathy for him as well? There is a
Moment.
There's a battle going back and forth.
an emotional struggle.
And they barely get away because those other guys come out of the cabin, and their guns blazing, shooting at Clint Eastwood and the Schofield kid, and he's just...
At him with a fucking shotgun.
It's like, I can't see. Just shoot. Just shoot back. I don't care if you miss. Just shoot back.
And during this time, Morgan Freeman already was done. He's heading south. He's
He's
retired.
heading south, yeah.
He gets caught by Gene Hackman's character, and they start interrogating him, whipping him, and then
That was a brutal scene. They actually bring the whip back.
yeah, and
They
it's like
tied him to the
jail cell.
jail
and,
cell.
Yeah.
and then they're asking him questions, figuring out who they really are, and when they beat him with an inch of his life, they find out who really Clint Eastwood and Morgan Freeman are.
Off camera yet, I think.
Yeah, and you
Off
come to
camera.
find that out through the prostitutes.
That kind of confused me because after they get done running away, killing the second guy,
Mm-hmm.
Schofield kid finally admits that he didn't kill anybody.
That was his first man that he ever
Yeah.
took.
And, you know, Clint Eastwood's actually kind of easing him into it. He even says something like, it's a strange thing killing a guy. You know, you take everything away he ever wanted and ever had.
Such a brilliant script.
Yeah.
And then like he has him take a drink because and then when he realizes that this is his first kill, he's like, "Yo, just
have a
drink."
drink.
Just keep drinking.
So,
It'll help.
Yeah, it'll make you feel better. It'll numb you.
And then the prostitute comes in, gives them the money for everything because she hears about how they're done. And they said, okay, I can give the rest to Ned. And she said, but Ned's dead. And Clint Eastwood keeps on saying, no, he heads south. Like, he kept on saying he headed south. And they said, no, he got caught and he spilled everything about you to Gene Hackman.
Bill, yeah.
And I'm thinking, like, is this like a ploy to get him back? Or did he
Right.
really do it? Because we don't see it.
We don't see it. It's off camera.
You just see the whipping and you see them asking questions. That's about it. There's nothing else until that moment she rides up with the bag of money.
Yeah.
Right.
Literally
So
a bag of money.
But if history has proven anything, Gene Hackman is a cold motherfucker. So more than likely he did kill him.
Yeah.
Oh,
I'm
yeah.
sure he's not a guy who would bullshit and lie.
And then the thing that really triggered Clint Eastwood off and that makes him go back to his old ways was when he finds out that they displayed Morgan Freeman's body in front of the salon,
Yeah.
that he's dead, and they
Yeah,
said,
it just says assassin across it. Like they put
Assassin.
him on display. Like
Oh,
this is
yeah.
what we do to killers,
Mm-hmm.
Right.
and it's crazy.
Right, but like I said, that line, he had it coming. Even the Schofield kid has that line as he's drinking, saying he had it coming, and then Clint Eastwood has my favorite line in the movie: "We all have it coming."
yep.
That's I get chills for that moment.
There's so many good lines in the movie that it's sickening. You know?
It is. It's so gritty and real.
Yeah, and I mean they're not like the typical "I'll be back" or "May the force be with you," but they're so good that it's like, you know,
They're layered.
how comes they're not quoted more? 'Cause
They're layered.
There's more to it than just here's a one-liner.
Mm-hmm.
Like if you think about it, there's more depth to it.
Another really nice thing is they said this script, not one thing was changed. After all the years that Clint Eastwood had it in his drawer, they said usually by the time you get a finished script,
You get rewrites and
it looks like a
changes.
rainbow because like this date, this change for you, for that. And they said not one line of dialogue was changed at all.
Well, that's great.
I think the only thing they changed was instead of being a voiceover, it was the scroll at the beginning and the end.
Oh, okay.
Mhm.
That was it. I'm like, honestly, it fit better because like if you're hearing someone talk over it, kind of takes away from like you said the cinematography, the view, and everything. Like just reading it and looking at everything that's coming at
Have the
you.
music play.
Yeah,
Yep.
And it's at this time now, Clint Eastwood actually picks up the whiskey bottle.
yo, starts chugging.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And you could just see it on his face.
He walks right through those double doors and sees all the guys. Gene Hackman giving this great speech. Everyone, get the first two drinks are on the house. And he just holds that shotgun.
And this is probably Clint Eastwood at his best
It
in
is.
the movie.
Just looking at his eyes and the way the shadows are cast.
You can't see his eye. It's almost like that darkness just... Because you know how the eyes, they say, like, the eyes are the doorway to the soul.
Yeah.
And then it's just
Black.
the black. Exactly. It just the brim down. Even his voice, it's still Clint Eastwood's voice,
It has
but
a deeper octave to it. Like you can tell that this guy is fucking just angry about
But
the
he's
whole situation.
but he's not the typical, like, oh, I'm fucking pissed. I gotta kick your ass. It's,
This town ain't big enough for the two of
Yeah,
us. And there's
no.
none of that crap.
Literally, the first thing that comes out of his mouth is who owns this place.
Yeah.
And I'm like, oh, what does that have to do with anything? And then like the guy comes out, he goes, you guys behind him, just clear out. I'm like, what the fuck's he gonna do? What does he do? He fucking shoots him with a shotgun.
Boom!
For displaying Morgan Freeman's body out front. I was like, that took me back. I was like, wow, he even asked the guys to, part.
Yeah.
That caught me off guard. I was like, oh shit.
Gene Hackman just says, "You just killed an unarmed man." Well, he should have armed himself.
Yeah, that line there.
That
He
was
had an
badass.
opportunity to do it, but he didn't. Dude walks in with a shotgun, still pointing it. Would you think he would grab something to defend himself? That would have made a crazier scene, but comes back to not your typical Western.
Yeah.
And then he points the gun at Gene Hackman. And
He explains his whole backstory. He says, "I'm William Money. I killed women and children. Didn't have a problem doing it."
Yep. Anything that crawled, I killed. It's cold. I mean, this guy, this feeble man who couldn't shoot a gun or climb on his own horse is now back to his former self in this one moment.
and like the craziest thing about that scene, like you think that he's gonna kill him with a shotgun. No, it misfires. And what does he do? He fucking takes the shotgun and chucks it at Gene Hackman.
Threw it at him.
And then just starts shooting everybody in the room with the Schofield Kid's gun.
Yep.
Just to finish out.
Yeah.
And I'm sitting there, I'm like, holy shit. And like clears out the whole room, and there's a couple people like hidden.
Oh, yeah.
And you come to realize though, he shot all 6 bullets, shoots Gene Hackman and everybody else. He's still pointing the gun at people.
Yeah.
And it's empty. And they're just that afraid of him at this moment in time, because like one dude killing these 6-7 people, and you're like, holy shit. And then like people clear out, they're going out the back door, they're getting the fuck out of there.
It kind of goes back to that line Gene Hackman had at the beginning of the movie, where it doesn't matter how fast you draw a gun, it matters about how well you shoot it.
Yeah.
I think there was something along those lines.
Something like that, and he was able to hit everyone with every shot. And Mr. Beauchamp is back in the corner again. I'm thinking to myself, you should be taking notes right now. You're writing Gene Hackman's story. You should be writing Bill Money's story right now. he just killed your star. He's got him in the gut, and he's still alive. He just looks at Gene Hackman as he's just kind of just sort of with it, not really. Puts the gun to his face. "I'll see you in hell, Mr. Money." Boom. Just straight up kill
Just
him.
that scene alone, like he's literally disoriented. He's still reaching for his gun, and then Clint Eastwood just kicks his arm over, like, "Bitch, please," and then points his gun and it ends the job. But like even after that moment where the room's clear, he actually opens the door and is pretty much threatening the whole fucking town. He goes, He goes, "I'm done shooting, but if anybody shoots at me, I will kill you, your family, your friends, like everybody."
Your
I'm like,
wife, your children. I'll kill everybody.
I was like, dude, this guy's not fucking playing around. So like, I was expecting once again.
That's some dark humor there. It's just, I'm gonna kill your wife. I'm gonna kill your kids.
I was like, and then like I'm expecting like typical Western. Like he gets out the door, everyone just starts shooting. No, like the writer and one of the deputies are standing there, like hidden. Like the deputy's pointing the gun at him. Like,
They have an opportunity to kill him.
and they don't, because like if they miss, they know that they are screwed. Like that whole situation. Like yeah, dude, he's not playing around.
But hey, in this rainstorm, you bury my friend properly. You get him off this display and you put him in the ground.
Yeah, that was probably like one of the biggest moments in that movie to me. It was like, yeah, dude, fear itself was overtaking the fact that they could have just took care of him. But yeah, the fear was already instilled in now these people, and then the fact that he's like, "I will kill everybody you know if you shoot at me." I'm like, that's a big fucking moment for me. And literally, that's almost where the movie ends. Like he rides off and
Yep.
He
That's
rides
it.
off and he's back to the gravesite with his wife.
Yeah, and I believe him and the kids move.
They moved to San Francisco.
We get another scroll where I believe it was his wife's mother comes looking for him,
Okay.
and she sees that they're all gone.
I don't know if that necessarily had to be in the movie. I
don't-
could have done without that panning down and just giving us a little backstory. I felt like if we just saw a scene with Clint Eastwood and his kids leaving the house and traveling, we get the idea that they're moving.
I think it was also shown that he did when this job was done. He was done. Like he retired completely. He was not a killer anymore.
Yeah.
They said he became a shopkeeper almost in San Francisco, and like became really wealthy off of it. I'm guessing this last killing was his last stepping stone, almost like the concept of John Wick, where one killing we'll do the.
I'm not back.
Yeah.
I'm not back. I'm
Yeah.
just doing
Pay
this
for the
one
rest.
thing, and then I'm done for good. Yeah. I can see a little John Wick comparison here.
I thought about it a little bit.
Without
Like,
the dead
retired
dog.
assassin,
Well,
dead wife.
Remember what I said earlier about how you could take Unforgiven out of a Western and put it in today?
Yeah, essentially John Wick.
Yeah.
you
So
could.
there you go.
You could.
You know, that's and look how good of a movie John Wick is. I mean, people talk about the action, but John Wick is a good movie too.
Damn good movie.
And that's what Unforgiven is. It's a damn good movie.
Yeah,
It is.
I mean, we should probably do a show on it again eventually for us watching it a second time and
Anniversary.
going. Yeah, an
We want to do
anniversary.
it.
You got a lot of anniversaries already coming.
Yeah.
For
We do. We've already talked about doing Showgirls 2, Pennies from Heaven. I saw the trailer. I lost my shit.
But yeah,
Oh.
it was a really good movie. Like I like as I was texting you guys earlier in the week, I thought it was a little slow going, but the story itself was still there.
Mhm.
Like everything that was happening was like the pacing was there, but it just seemed some stuff was a little drawn out.
Yeah.
But it's not an action-packed movie. It's more
No, it's
the
not.
story. The story is
It's a
what gets
character-driven
you.
story. Yeah.
And the story is no matter what kind of movie it is. I mean, you can have like the greatest action in a movie, but it'll be a shit movie if there's no story to it.
Yeah.
I mean, Star Wars could be cool, you know, seeing the lightsabers and the blasters, but guess what? If you don't have interesting characters like Luke, Leia, Han, Chewie, Darth Vader, and Obi-Wan,
The mythology and the backstory.
then who cares?
Who cares?
And also the performances. You know, like I said earlier, Clint Eastwood said 95% of a movie are the actors. And if those guys didn't do... I mean, like, I'm watching it going, if Clint Eastwood and Morgan Freeman didn't even get any nominations at all for Oscars, what are they watching? I mean, it wasn't until after I watched it and I went back and I said, oh, okay, well, Eastwood got nominated. You know, I thought he won.
Mm-hmm.
Clearly, I didn't read that correctly. But... But when I saw Gene Hackman won for it, I was like, well, good. He should have. You know, he was
Yeah.
fantastic.
You know, he played such a good villain that you actually started hating him. And
Mhm.
Yeah.
what happens to him at the end, you're like, well, you fucking deserve
You
this.
did deserve
You-
this shit.
Oh yeah.
You had this coming.
Like, he went over his line of authority,
Yeah.
and
Pretty much the best crooked cop portrayal right there.
Mhm.
How messed up would that have been? Him whipping a black man, Morgan Freeman, as his arms are strapped to a jail cell. That's even more messed up, I think.
but that's just what they did.
That's just what they did.
You know,
Yeah. Of course, at
And-
this moment, you know, Lincoln had the Emancipation Proclamation had already cleared, so we're living in a nation with no slavery, but still, just bringing something like that back is just even more sinister. The whip. I think it's the idea of the whip.
Yeah.
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 Oh, yeah. I'm also glad they didn't have any racial undertones in
I'm
it
glad,
either.
too.
It was just, let's focus on telling the story,
Mhm.
and
Yeah.
you know, because that sometimes takes away, like, when you get into politics in movies, which I think is a horrible idea unless there's some sort of major significance to it, like Star Wars and the battle of, like, the good versus evil political control. You know, that I understand.
Mhm.
Not this, like, one party versus another party. It's like, just leave that stuff out of it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Just let the movie be the movie. And I'm glad they let it do that.
I'm glad too.
I don't think Clint Eastwood would have allowed that anyway.
No, that's just not his style. I don't think that's in his style to do.
No, he's a very serious actor, and as it's proven throughout the years, he's a very serious director. It's
Very committed. Yeah.
it's art. It's a project. You just focus on that.
This was his last Western.
Yeah.
This was Clint Eastwood's last Western he ever did.
Could he top that?
I don't think he can.
I don't really.
Winning Best Director and Best Picture, the last movie to win Best Picture as a Western, because the one before that was 2 years ago with Dances with Wolves. And I don't think he can.
And honestly, I mean, like I said, I'm not big on Westerns. I've seen a couple. I've seen some of the good ones, obviously, like Good, Bad, and the Ugly.
Mm-hmm.
Tombstone, it's been years, and
I enjoy Tombstone.
I do enjoy it.
That might be my favorite one, actually, just because I have a soft spot for that movie.
I've seen Django.
Django Unchained, that's a Western, yes.
I honestly never really considered that a Western.
Yeah,
I don't. I used to think of it as a Tarantino movie.
Yeah,
I don't
and
even consider it a Western, but it is.
And that's why it's a Tarantino movie with the Old West in it.
Right.
It's the best way to say it.
That's a good way to say it.
But that's where I can see why Unforgiven is the last true best Western. And really, the next person who tries to do a Western that's going to be taken seriously and brought out to the public, hey, good luck.
Yeah.
Because really, it's...
You don't really see them too often nowadays. You really don't.
No.
I mean, we've only got a handful ever since this one came out.
In the past 10 years, we had, Lone Ranger, Magnificent Seven.
Open Range, Kevin Costner's other directorial effort, which wasn't a bad movie. I actually thought it had a decent story. It's definitely more of a love story, but there is a really good shootout with Kevin Costner and Robert Duvall against the town, the corrupted sheriff. That's some good moments.
Hatfield versus McCoy's.
That was a good television show.
Yeah.
Miniseries.
Yeah, other than that, I think it's also just a different time. You know,
Yeah.
like I said, you can incorporate Western stories into a comic book character, and it could be modernized.
Yeah.
Like anything.
You
know,
can.
we talked about that in Jaws and Superman. That, you know, a lot of stuff. That's why when I've heard when the RoboCop reboot was coming out, people were asking Peter Weller what his thoughts of it were, and he said, "Listen, everything's been ripped off from centuries ago."
Oh, yeah.
You know, he said, like, the drawings in caves,
Yeah.
you know, they were inspired from, like, the Renaissance, the Baroque. It's, like, so everything's been ripped off for years. He goes, it's just natural for things to be remade and redone in a certain way. So, and that really opened my eyes and said, yeah, I don't want those classics touched up and redone in a bad light, but it is going to happen eventually. I mean, it could even have been, there could be another RoboCop movie just out there, just not even called RoboCop, but it could be the same thing. Hell, it could even be better. Really, I mean, you shouldn't restrict somebody from having an idea and taking it.
Yeah.
You know, I mean, like Paranormal Activity versus Blair Witch Project, it's almost the same thing, but it's its own thing.
That's a discussion I'd like to talk about. I know we plan on, that's another future episode,
I mean,
found footage movies.
I mean, we could even have originals versus reboots and stuff
We
like
could.
that down the line. But
the topics are endless.
oh my gosh, yeah. That's why we talk about this stuff, because it can go 100 to 1,000,000 different ways. And that's the beauty of art. That's what keeps us going. I mean, just look at the backstory about this movie.
Yeah. It's rich.
Yeah.
I mean, there's not a lot of lines in this screenplay, but you don't need a lot of dialogue in a screenplay to tell a good story. You don't, because you can just, like you said, 95% of the movie is the actors, and they sell it.
Mm-hmm.
Even when lines are unspoken, you can read their body language. You can read what's going on in their eyes and just the way they carry themselves. You know, it's amazing.
It is. I mean, from the lighting, there's not too much music in it.
Clint Eastwood helped write the music.
He did. Yep.
I didn't know he was a composer.
Mm-hmm. And the sound effects are great. Like, I liked how the gunshots weren't so over the top, ridiculous sounding, because I know Westerns usually did that. But I really do see and understand why this is probably the best Western of all time. And I've seen a fair amount of Clint Eastwood movies. I haven't seen a lot, like a whole resume of his.
I've seen a lot. I've definitely seen a lot.
And I gotta say that this is probably my favorite performance of his.
I can see that.
Hands down.
Yeah, I can agree with that too.
I mean, I liked him in the Leone trilogy with Fistful of Dollars, Few Dollars More, and of course Good, Bad, and the Ugly, Josie Wales, Escape from Alcatraz, that Dirty Harry. I mean,
Dirty Harry,
was
man.
I mean, come on.
Dirty Harry saga at this point. There's so many fucking Dirty Harrys.
Oh man, Gran Torino.
Gran Torino.
I've never actually seen that movie.
You've never seen
Really?
Gran? You need to see that. That's another.
We'll put that on the list. And
eventually. Favorite scene.
favorite scene. Boy, this is a hard one because there really is so many of them.
There are.
I keep going back to the conversation between him and Morgan Freeman at the campfire.
That's a good one.
And how he's his past ways and his wife leaving him, and Morgan Freeman says, "Well, you ain't like that no more." And he goes, "That's right. I'm not like that. I'm just a fella now." And as we see,
Or am I?
and as we see throughout the end of the movie, that it's still there, but it comes back. And I think when the way he says that, it almost is a struggle. Like, yeah, I am just a fella. Like, he wants to say it and mean it, but he doesn't really mean it.
Yeah.
That's how I took it, because I'm just listening to it going, I just don't think he fully believes himself.
Mm-hmm.
That it's still there. It's that, like they say, drug addicts still fight addictions, and I think he still fights it and struggles. And with his wife gone, he it's only him doing it now.
Right.
A least favorite scene, I honestly don't have one. I can watch the whole movie and just be enthralled by everything.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, even like you said, the credits, like, they don't need it at the end, but you can take it away and it really wouldn't mean squat. And you could probably just go, well, what happened to him at the end? I don't even think you need to, like, see them going.
Yeah,
personally.
That would be my only thing, is that I don't think we really needed the opening credits to pan up and down and then the ending one. I don't think we really needed that. That's just me being nitpicky.
Mm-hmm.
That's just nitpicky. I don't really have a weak scene that I can really pick out, because everything is very strong in this movie.
Very. I mean, there's a reason why it won Best Picture, because it's solid throughout across the board.
I was going to say my favorite scene was going to be the gun fighting at the very end, but it's actually not. It's the moment after the Schofield kid, after Schofield kid, after he kills the cowboy and he's just sitting on that tree drinking back, knocking it out. He's got that great scene where, I put 3 in him and I killed him, and I lied about those other guys I killed. That Spaniard that came at me with a knife, I just hit him with a shovel and I just shoot him off. I was just all talk, and you could see him just like the tears coming down his face. And there's this great shot of just Clint Eastwood, and it's just looking up at him as the dark skies behind him illuminating his back, and then he's just delivering his lines, and it's that whole scene. And then the kid says the most iconic line, "Maybe he had it coming. We all have it coming." Like, you know what? That's it. That's my favorite scene right there. It's just those two talking, just their moment, their 3 minutes of togetherness. That's my favorite scene.
Actually, mine is a toss-up between the whole situation between him and, what's her name? I want to say the cut-up prostitute, where that whole, like, heartfelt moment he had with her.
Darla.
I wanted to call her Darla.
Darla.
But I cannot remember her real name. And I was like, that right there was just, like, showing that he's able to have that soft side, yet he's still able to stay faithful to his now dead wife. And that right there I thought it was an amazing scene. Just like, he's showing that he is still human. He is still an actual nice guy.
Yeah.
And then the other scene that actually got me really well was when I was talking about it earlier, was showing how much fear could control a situation. The fact that he just killed a room full of people, and that whole scene where he's leaving the saloon, or the cat house, where the fuck it's called now. And like the fact that they were so afraid of him that he was able just to walk out of town like nothing happened. That those two scenes right there were what literally playing like almost polar opposites, like showing the good of him and the bad.
Yeah.
And it, like, those two scenes actually really stuck out to me. It wasn't the fact that, like, the whole shooting, like you said before, it's everything after that got me.
It's the good, the bad, and the ugly.
Yeah.
Boom.
And there's really nothing bad to say. Like I said, to me it was like a little slow in some parts, but like there's like I said, nitpicking. So there's really
Maybe just in terms of
nothing.
pacing,
Yeah, there was really nothing for me to complain about. Like, being the first time I watched it, and I really enjoyed it.
Oh yeah.
I would recommend to anybody. Like you said, last really good Western. So yeah.
If you're not a Western, this is, like we said, this is the most unconventional Western. This is the most different of all the Westerns out there, and it's what makes it the best.
I was going to say, if you're not a fan of Westerns, just watch this, because it's a movie.
Mm-hmm.
It's a movie with the West in it.
Right.
It's not the typical John Wayne bullshit. There's a really solid story in here, and the performances are just, I mean, I kind of make it sound like it's the perfect movie. I mean, I don't think we really talked about a movie so highly since our Exorcist episode, which was our first one, because, you know, there's so much that, like, I mean, Terminator was very solid across the board as well, but...
It was. Yes, it is dated, and some things don't hold up as well, but that was the time frame that they had to work with. They had 84 to work with in this movie. This could be a movie that could... It's timeless. You maybe you wouldn't even tell this was made in 92.
No, that's...
You could think this movie was made last year.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think the only thing you would see if you would the difference between Clint Eastwood now and Clint Eastwood.
Right, the difference between
That's the
right, the age difference with all the characters.
How
but
Morgan Freeman looks like he hasn't aged in 40 years, so...
he still looks the same.
And he's, what, 70, 80 something?
I don't know.
What the hell?
His hair just got whiter.
Yeah.
His hair just got exactly. Oh yeah, everyone's just a little bit older. That's all. But this movie could have happened at any time.
As far as takeaways go, I gotta say, I love the struggle within. I feel like there's a struggle within, and for anybody who has a hard time finding themselves. Because one thing I noticed is when he goes back to his old ways, he goes back to it for a good way. Like, everything about it was for his kids. He even looks at his wife's grave before he goes because he's like, I'm going back to a dark place. And I think it is that taking...
Forgive me.
Yeah, and I think it is that taking a negative into a positive. Not that violence is the positive message in it, but it's that it kind of goes back to like what comic book characters say about their arch villains and their mastermind ideas and the great things that they can come up with, but they use it to be destructive. Where it's like, if you could apply that to doing good, imagine what it could do for everybody and for the sake of humanity. Like, we could be so much further. And it is that taking a bad thing that you had from the past and buried it deep and then putting it towards something positive.
Honor. It's a big theme in this movie too, is honor. The prostitutes at the cat house, they want honor for one of theirs being slashed up and the other guy's getting a slap on the wrist for it. They want honor. They want justice for what happened. Clint Eastwood wants justice for Morgan Freeman being wrongfully killed when he didn't really do anything. He was just there. He was just a man that just happened to be there. And he's wants to defend his honor by doing something violent, but for a good reason.
And for the movie being solid as it is, it was actually filmed in Alberta, Canada, in the secluded areas.
It was Canada?
Yeah, it was Canada. And
it was a cheap place to film out there. A lot of films were actually made in Canada because of the cost.
Beautiful atmosphere, too. Yeah. It was gorgeous to look at. The costumes were also great. We didn't talk about them, but that goes without saying.
I mean, nothing stuck out like a sore thumb. Everything felt the time frame, authenticity.
Yeah. Speaking of costumes, the boots that Clint Eastwood wore were from when he was in Rawhide.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
I thought another tidbit.
I thought that was actually pretty cool. Like, there's a lot of stuff that he was trying to keep to that look, so it fit well.
Yep. Oh, and by the way, since we all kept calling her Darla, the character's name is Delilah Fitzgerald, and the actress's name is Anna Levine.
Anna Levine. Okay.
So
Anna Levine, you were amazing. You were awesome in this movie.
So we just
You're not Darla for this review.
We just want to give her a shout out for this. Give her credit where it's due.
Right.
Do you guys have anything else that you'd like to add about this?
I think we've covered everything. Honestly, I think
Jeff,
we did.
you good?
I'm good.
All right. All I'm gonna say is, for anybody out there, whether you love westerns or not, please give this movie a chance, because this is well worth your time. It's definitely something to add to your collection. If you don't ever feel like buying it, at least take the time out to see it, because I have a hard time not seeing anybody not love it.
If you're not a Western fan, like we said, give this one a shot.
If you want to, look up the reaction of, I believe it's called Unforgiven Alpha. You'll see what we're talking about.
It's pretty funny.
Well, with that being said, we're going to sign off. This is Colin Peters.
John Rashatter.
And Jeff Manfred.
Thank you for listening to our show of Unforgiven, and we'll talk to you again later.
Until next time.
Please, somebody help me.